Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to In the Zone. Rich Sutter, Pete Coles, the absolute best basketball analysis you're going to find anywhere in the nation. And we like to say that because, number one, the background. You know, we've been in the game a really, really long time. Number two, the analysis is done through a different set of eyes than the people that are doing the analysis right now. And number three, when you look at most analysis, they've either had a good playing career or they haven't really been involved in the game other than that, or they haven't been involved in the game at all and they're just really good behind the camera. You know, here we're bringing you the heat, we're bringing you the news, and we're bringing it to you in a really, really good fashion. And so we'd like to thank you for rejoining us this week. We've had a really couple of good runs on YouTube lately with our videos, and people are watching, and we thank you. And we thank you for taking notice that we're delivering some pretty good basketball over here. So we want to start off right away with our Feed 'em Fish section in memory of the great Sam Tolkoff, the Bronx coach. Pete's got our logo up on there. And the NBA Feed 'em Fish going to be a little quick this week. There's not a whole lot of stuff that was going on there. But this first piece of news is huge, Pete. LeBron James, and there has been a lot of this might be the most talked about basketball topic of all time, is who is the greatest of all time. And the greatest of all time is LeBron James is certainly in the conversation for sure. He just keeps eclipsing milestones that make it impossible not to consider him into the conversation, in my opinion. And so this milestone is the first player in NBA history to score more than 40,000 points.
Wow.
First player in NBA history to score more than 40,000 points. That's a lot.
Yeah.
That's a lot. And you're looking at it over the course of 20-plus seasons, you know, and that's consistency as well. And so there's a legacy there for sure that's going to be very, very tough to battle when you break into the data and you break into all of the accomplishments of LeBron James. But to me, I still think there's an argument to be made there. And I think there's more than one other person in that conversation, certainly. It's a lot of it is temporal. A lot of it has to do with time. A lot of the people making assessments today weren't around to see Michael Jordan play. A lot of the people making assessments today didn't see the sky hook of Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and the dominance that it brought to the game. A lot of people today didn't see Wilt Chamberlain score 100 points. And so it's tough to have that full spectrum, you know. And so
Get to see the clutch of Larry Bird.
Larry Bird, I think, is
mean?
the greatest of all time.
Clutch.
You know, it was just, you know, with God blessed everybody else with, and what he gave Larry Bird, that makes him the greatest player of all time. Because there's others that have been able to make great careers based upon their enormous God-given talents, and that's wonderful, and it's beautiful part of the game. But if you ask me, somebody who understood basketball at the most core fundamental level, there's nobody, including Michael Jordan, that understood it like Larry Bird did. And his clutch performances and his shooting abilities and the way he could just maneuver and pass and do everything out on the basketball court. I'll give you another one, Pistol Pete Maravich.
Yeah.
People watched him, you know, when he was younger in college. My God, he had no peers. He had no peers if you look at his numerics and you look at his numbers. All right, the Celtics keep piling on the W's. They remain as our number one in our top 15, our Super 15. But they have really, really taken it up a little bit because I think I'm not sure if after watching the press conference with Coach Kerr, the recently signed $35 million man, Coach Kerr, they decided to leave Jaylen Brown open from the perimeter. They just laid off of him and went back into the paint and dared him to shoot the ball from the outside. That's basically an insult in basketball circles. Absolutely an insult. And there's some people that you can try that with. I don't think Jaylen Brown was the right guy to try that with. His shooting proficiency in the outside is really, really pretty good, but they decided to try it. And oh my God, it looked like the entire Celtics team took it personal. And they gave the Golden State Warriors a beating like I haven't seen in a long time. There
I believe the quote
no
is
let up.
Blank around and find out.
That's exactly, I think, what happened because they became the third Celtic victim to get a 50-point L this year. They got the third, and the Celtics broke the record there. They're absolutely smoking teams, but this was personal. This was personal. They put it on the Golden State Warriors, and I want to say also it might have also been a little bit of the chippy and dirty way that the Warriors play. I think that might have something to do with it as well. We've talked about Draymond Green, but Kuminga, some of the other guys they have are just what we would call in the schoolyard chippy and dirty, and really, really not a good place for that in the game. And so that might have had something to do with it as well. But I will say this, when the Celtics turn it on, I don't really know right now, and we're going to get the people in Boston excited about this, I'm sure, but I don't really know right now if they have a peer. I don't really know right now if I was Boston and I'd say, who scares you in the Eastern Conference right now? Who scares you? Do you say the Bucks? Bucks don't have enough to hang with the Celtics. Do you think the Orlando Magic, who have had a great season, do you think they could be a surprise team and knock off the Celtics? I don't see that happening. You look through the rest of it, 76ers, with Embiid or without Embiid, still not as good as the Celtics. So I think it's bright days ahead in Boston. They just came off a 9-game win streak. They lost a game. They'll recalibrate and get back on. But I like this team a lot. And dropping off of Jaylen Brown, the only thing I would say to Coach Kerr is you might want to have picked somebody else because it really didn't work out good for you. All right. We're moving right along here today, Pete. We're smooth today. The weather outside is balmy. That's how I would describe it, balmy. And I'm saying maybe it's going to hit 60 today. A little bit of moisture in the air, but God, the weather we've been having the last couple of days is good. It makes me feel like spring is on the way, which it certainly is, but I have a funny feeling it's not on the way just yet. But right now, I'll take any days that I can get in order to get me to that nice spring weather that comes into New England. Yep. Okay, we're going to jump and switch gears here. We're moving right along into our NCAA Feed 'em Fish. Pretty big news here, I think, where the Dartmouth men's basketball team has gone ahead and decided to unionize. The Dartmouth men's basketball team voted 13-2. I thought that was a little interesting that they didn't have unanimous consent in their own locker room. But I thought, the vote 13-2 is certainly majority. They decided to go ahead and try to go into the courts and formulate a union. Now, I just wanted to stop on this moment for a second because this is one of the things that they refer to as a seminal moment in college athletics. Because when you have a situation where if you have to now have colleges put the people that they have currently on scholarship, have to start listing them as employees, which is exactly what this is an intention to do.
Right.
All of a sudden, you're going to do one of two things, maybe both at the same time. You will eliminate sports at a massive, massive level.
That's what I was going to say. When does the Dartmouth College president eliminate the basketball program?
Well,
because he doesn't want to carry. Because when you make them employees, you now have to carry health insurance, and all the benefits that you would have as a benefited employee. Right?
100%, Pete. 100%. It's gonna be in the courts, for a good amount of time, I would assume. But this is one of the situations also where I think if the courts were smart, they would dismiss this immediately and dismiss it on the grounds that the people who brought it, Dartmouth, they're not on scholarship. They don't receive any incentive to have to play. They're there of their own volition to play. The second piece of it is they lose money. They're not making a profit. And what company in the country is compelled to pay its employees when they don't make a profit? Now, lots of companies don't make profits, but they pay their employees. That's part of not making the profit. But this is already baked into the cake long before they started to pay their employees. They were already losing money. Yep. Can you imagine what the total loss would then become if they ensue and win? Okay, so the second and third piece of this is now you have NIL moving all around the place. You have all of these different deals going for everybody. This is going to be a wedge, I believe, that drives a schism between Power Fives who can afford to do this and the lower level schools that cannot afford to do this. This is what's going to be the Trojan horse and brought by a lower level school. Unfortunately, they don't even know what they did to themselves, I don't think, on this one. But this is more of a situation where I don't know that the plaintiffs, I don't know that they have any case here, honestly. But I think one of the things that this might drive is to get back more towards the piece of should they be compensated at all?
Right.
And I think we could say that they probably should be. But it can't be like this because the schools have to have some control over it, because they're losing money as it is right now. If it's
Well,
accurate,
some schools are losing money. Some schools are not. I think it should be a stipend as a non-benefit or special employee.
so we're almost drawing into the thing. We're gonna, and you and I agree on this.
Yeah.
But what it is it opens the door to that split that we just aforementioned. It opens the door to that split where we don't have the money to pay these guys. Okay, you're 1AA right now. And then we have the money to pay them. Okay, here we go. We're going to pay them. So the NIL deals, what happens then? Does that revert to the school? Does the school then, because the school right now, Florida State got dinged up for this, they're not allowed to have that real intimate involvement in the NIL, where they're actually paying the players themselves. They have to have a combine or some consortium on the outside that funds this thing, and that's where the money comes from, or it comes in directly from different places. I really
It's
know
so
that the schools
confusing.
are not. Well, I know the schools aren't allowed to be involved with it, and that they are. That they are involved in it. And Florida State got dinged. If the NCAA had enough enforcement people, they'd find out that a lot of people are doing the exact same thing that they're doing, I would assume. So it's a mess. It's a mess right now. And I think this makes it a further mess. The Dartmouth decision to go ahead makes this a further mess. I think it's going to be really, really interesting to see how long this gets tied up in court. But there was an interesting case about this when I was at Colgate University as well, where the Colgate women's ice hockey team was a club and the men was a varsity sport, very successful varsity sport. But the women that were there in the club sued the university to be made varsity. The university didn't want to do it because of the expense.
Yep.
And they went to court, and it went back and forth a number of different times, but I'm pretty sure that they won. And we're told that Colgate was told they had to form women's ice hockey. I don't believe that decision was an accurate representation of Title IX, but it went nonetheless. It went nonetheless, and I believe it still stands to this day. So maybe that's going to come in and be part of this as well. But that's, everything seems to be in motion right now. Everything seems to be up for grabs, and I think that's because there's no leadership right now that's strong. There's no leadership out there that says, okay, here's what we can do. And they also understand Charlie Baker's not been around the block a long time and had a lot of very, very high-level interactions with situations that can get you sued. And I know he wants to tread lightly because every move he makes is apt to get him sued. The NCAA sued, slows everything down, and will take any progress that he might have had in mind and put it someplace else because you'll be in court fighting for your life all the time.
Right.
So just a quick one. All right, we're moving on. And Pepperdine University has gone ahead and released their coach, Lorenzo Romar. And I just want to say to the administration out of Pepperdine and everybody involved out there, call me. I'm ready. Malibu Beach is perfect for me. I think I'm perfect for Pepperdine. I'm ready to go. I'm ready to retire in the Massachusetts state system very cool soon. And walking down the beach in Malibu seems like a really good idea to me. So all you people out there, give me a shout.
You're on the carousel. You want the brass ring shot.
I just want Pepperdine. I just want to go to Pepperdine because I want to be on Malibu Beach. That's all. I'm not fussy, Pete. I'm not fussy. UConn, people down in Connecticut, the Huskies are howling. And they're really, really having a great season down there. Amazing, amazing season, back-to-back. Coach Danny Hurley, the hottest young coach in the game right now, I would say. They've just won their first outright Big East title since 1999.
Wow.
Since 1999. And what a program they've been through the years. What a program they absolutely have been through the years. They have been, the Huskies have been, maybe I would say top 5 in the last 20 years of all the great programs that we've had here in terms of national championships, in terms of representations in the Final Four, in terms of having strings and strings and strings of great seasons. I just think Storrs probably isn't the easiest place to get that done. And I think what's been done down there is pretty much representative, especially if you look on the women's side as well with Gino. And that's a miracle. That's nothing short of a miracle what they've done down there. Kudos to their administration, because you can't do that type of winning without great administration. And kudos to their coaches for their longevity and their ability to stay there and have great success. And also kudos to the entire Storrs community, because they bring it. When they got a home game, they really show up and represent. They're unbelievable. The women have sold out down there for years. And the men's team has been well represented for years. If the men's team goes down to Madison Square Garden for the Big East tournament, the UConn faithful will be there. So it's a really, really kind of a unique situation up here in the Northeast. But, man, they've done great. And hats off to the Huskies. We also have them in our top 5 again this week for our Super 25. The player of the year right now, in the zone player of the year, we don't think it's close. We don't think it's even marginal right now. Zach Edey, Purdue, he's going to be our guy. He's going to be our guy. There's nobody really in the realm right now. And we're going to very, very soon put together our draft board. And you're going to be surprised where we have the big Z, where we're going to put him. We're going to put him very, very close to the top, because we think he has a tremendous, tremendous upside as an NBA player. We think they're missing it. And we think some of the draft board people are absolutely clueless when it comes to decisions like this. Look at what Trace Jackson Davis is doing right now. We gave you his name last year. He was drafted almost dead last. Okay, we gave you his name early because based upon what he had done in the Big Ten, based upon his numbers, his career, his entire span of work. We did the same thing with Dwayne Wade when Dwayne Wade was at Marquette. Yep. He led them to the Final Four, and we said, you have to recognize that. That matters. And so we're saying the same thing right here with Zach Edey. You know, that matters. That type of span of unbelievable play and having Purdue in rarefied air. You know, that for Purdue, which is not the easiest program in the country, I'm going to go out right now and say, because we started this earlier when they lost last year to FDU, do they come back like Virginia with the eye of the tiger, or do they come back and say, oh, my God, we're just jinxed and we're going to get bumped again? I think it's honest to say right now, they've come back eye of the tiger. They've come back ready to go. And right now, if you had to take it between – you asked me who's going to play in the final. If they've matched up bracket-wise, I think Purdue's going to make it. I think Purdue's going to make the Final Four this year. They seem to have that look in their face. And Connecticut, is going to be really, really tough to beat as well. I see Connecticut being right there. But our Rookie of the Year, I don't think that's close either. We got Reed Sheppard out of Kentucky having a monster year. I do not see, I think Dillingham could be a Rookie of the Year consideration as well. But what Reed Sheppard has done to that Kentucky team is nothing short of amazing. Now, do we have him as high on our draft board as some other people do? We do not. We do not, because it's a one-year cohort. It's a freshman year. We want to see him do a little bit more than that, but if he goes into the draft, goes into the combines, we'll certainly look at that. We'll certainly evaluate that. But right now, I certainly think he's probably top 15, but I don't know that I would have him in the top 7 like some people do. Some people have him being the first college player drafted. I wouldn't have him that high. His teammate Rob Dillingham is also mercury in a bottle, offense machine, but I don't know if I'd have him as high as I do some of the other people. There's a lot of good players out there, and I understand the love for the blue bloods and all that good stuff, but I just see that, it's shaping up a little different this year. And so I think it's going to be really fun, really interesting, and I can't wait for us to get into this week and next week where we enter into conference tournament play, which is going to be really exciting this year. The Big Ten, the ACC, the SEC, all of the Power Five. We knock the Power Five from time to time, but the Big 12 is going to get 8 or 9 teams in the tournament. Some of these other teams will be heavily represented with the at-large bids in the tournament, and they're deserving of it. We're going to take apart a little bit on that strength of schedule, and we're going to look into that right now. But one of the things that what we see happening is there's been a model that's been implemented, a mathematical model that's been implemented. I refer to it as weapons of mathematical destruction because I think it's tilted. I don't think it's equitable, and I don't think it's fair. I think it's there to support and buffer the Power Five conferences. I think that is its only utilization. That is its only purpose. And so when you go to an algorithmic structure, believe me, when you say we have a net or we have a Ken Pomeroy or we have a Torvik, you have ratings like that are strictly based what they say numerically. You also have to represent in there, how did you build that formula? How did you put that math together and how did you make that math work? And I failed math every single time I took it. But I do know when I see a boondoggle, when I see it. I do know when I see something that ain't right when I look at it, okay? Here's what's wrong with it. We'll look at it from the beginning. We'll look at it from the top, from the bottom, and then we'll get into the NBA Power 15. We'll get into the NCAA as well. But we're just going to look at this real quick in the NCAA Feed 'em Fish, all right? When you have the ratings, we call it Never Can Say Goodbye, the Michael Jackson segment of our show.
Yeah, sure.
The Never Can Say Goodbye. Who can't they say goodbye to? They can always say goodbye to Indiana State. They can always say goodbye to Utah State. They can always say goodbye to some of these really, really good, high-performing teams. They say goodbye to Dayton as soon as they lost to Richmond. They say goodbye to some of these high-performing teams. But once the big boys mess up, oh my God, they look the other way and they absolutely act like it was a poltergeist. They don't look at it. They don't see it. They don't want any part of it. And what I'm going to talk about here right now, it's pretty significant because it shows you just exactly how that thing is built in order to make sure that the lower teams don't crack the top and there's a glass ceiling. Almost, as they talk about in politics. And it's also there to ensure not only that the lower teams don't crack the top, and this is the really insidious part, it's also there designed to make sure that the power teams don't fall. That's the real insidious part of it. Here's what I'm talking about. All right, Alabama is 20-10 right now. They have 10 losses. We don't have them in our top 25. Ken Pom has them at 9. How can you be 9th in the country when you're 20-10? And half of your 20 are bye game cannolis. I don't get it. Torvik has them at 12. The AP has them ranked somewhere in 16. They have no business being in the top 25, period. All right, let's continue. Another one. This is the big one. Michigan State. Number 19, 17-12. Now, maybe they think Izzo's going to retire and they want to put him in one more time and secure his legacy. He's got 700 wins this year. But, I mean, honestly, I think if you sat down with Coach Izzo and said, Coach, do you really think your team is deserving of an at-large bid with 12 losses when they might say no to Utah State, who has 5?
Right.
Are you comfortable with that? I think even he would say, I think, they both have them at 19 with 12 losses. Come on. Wisconsin, number 22, they're 18-11, and they've fallen like an absolute rock off a ledge. They have gone down and done nothing but fall right through the floor. They'd be falling right through the floor, except the glass ceiling was there to catch them. Villanova, this is ridiculous, folks. Number 24, 17-12. They lost to St. Joseph's. They lost to LaSalle. They lost to another team down in Philadelphia that Villanova has absolutely no business losing to. It might have been Penn. And now they got them in the top in the top zone because they might have beaten a good Big East team here and there. But they didn't beat UConn. I don't know who else they think they beat, but the way they got this thing rigged, it's impossible for some of these teams to fall. Texas, number 26, 19-11. I bet they were like 10-2 at one time. I bet they were at least 12-2 at one time, Texas, with all of the cannolis that they digested, all of the bye games, all of the home games, the preponderance of home games. This isn't right. You shouldn't be looking at it this way, search committee. You should be looking at really dig into some of these teams that split their home games, home and away. You should look at these teams that don't have the ability to buy games. And you should look at the ability of these teams right now. I think this should be part of it. You should look at the teams that don't have the ability to NIL either. Is that part of it? Is that a disadvantage for some of these Division I teams? Some of them have great NIL, $1 million budgets. Some of them have zero. And they are having great seasons, and they have to play on the road every other game while you're sitting at home and buying games from teams that you know you're better than. It doesn't work, folks, and this is what we're here to talk about today. I hope before the NCAA search committee gets a hold of what they're going to do and knock some of these teams like they always do in favor of the Power Five, I really, really hope that they take a really, really good look at this. They have St. John's at number 12, 18-12. 18-12. Torvik has them at 22.
That's not very far above the Mendoza line.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Okay, here's why we say it's ridiculous. We like to add supporting facts to what we're talking about. And here's what we're saying about this is ridiculous. South Carolina, they have KenPom listed number 44. They are 24-5 and play in the Southeastern Conference. They are 24-5. They have a win over Tennessee. They might have beat Tennessee again the other night. No, Tennessee won that game. So they might be 6 losses right now. But how do you have them at 44? When you have Michigan State with 12 losses, they play in the SEC. They've played every big team in the SEC this year. We're talking about Kentucky, Alabama, Arkansas. Those teams are tough. Tennessee twice. Come on. You got them down here, and you're telling me that this is real? Okay, South Florida's had an unbelievable year. Abdur Rahim, he left Kennesaw State after taking an NCAA run. South Florida was flat on their back. Last year, 2 years ago, South Florida was absolutely flat on their back as a basketball program. And now, he's got them elevated. But they're listed at 85, despite being 23-5 at the University of Southern Florida. What an amazing story that is. But they're getting crippled with this algorithm. They're getting destroyed with this algorithm at 85. That will leave them outside the line of the at-large. That will leave them outside of consideration. So unless they win their league tournament, and they're in a really, really tough league, unless they win their league tournament, they're not getting in, and that's crazy. This is what we're talking about. College of Charleston has had an unbelievable year. Picking on a mid-major here. Probably have more home games than not. We saw some of the mid-majors now doing that because they can't have NIL money. They're starting to buy players because at least that money can stay at the school. Guarantee money for these games comes out of the school budget. The NIL money is not allowed to come out of the school budget. So some of these schools are able to implement much faster the ability to buy games right now than they are to buy players. Okay? I know that doesn't make a whole lot of sense to people, but that's where you are. And so you look at some of the mid-majors that you have. We looked at VCU. We looked at some of those mid-majors. They had really imbalanced schedules. They had, 18-7, 17-10. They had really imbalanced schedules because they're buying games because they can't buy players. So that's kind of where that whole thing is split. All right? But now, College of Charleston, 24-7, but they have them at number 103. It means if they don't win their league tournament, they're outside of consideration for having any shot at an at-large bid. 24-7, having a pretty good year. They're having a pretty good year. Yeah. All right, so let's look at this thing from the bottoms up as well, because then we're going to have to really hustle. All right, Mississippi Valley State is 362. No issue with that. They're 1-28. They're the dead last team in the entire algorithmic structure. I have no problem with that. But then look at where Detroit Mercy's listed in these algorithms. They're 1-26. Okay? They're listed at 349 by Torvik and 350 in KenPom. So what they're telling you is despite the fact that they're 1-31, excuse me. They're 1-31, and Mississippi Valley State is 1-28. Here's the teams that are between them now in your algorithm. IUPUI just changed coaches, 6-26. Coppin State, 2-25. Siena, 4-25. 4 wins. They're in the MAC conference. Stonehill just slipped up to Division I, but they have 4 wins. University of Maryland Eastern Shore has 8 wins. They're below them. Southeast Missouri, VMI, Pacific. They're all in between Mississippi Valley State and Detroit Mercy, who have 1 win each. Detroit Mercy is listed higher than 12 teams in the algorithm, despite the fact that they've won 1 game. Okay, that's it.
Shaking my head over here, Coach.
We can't do any more than point it out, folks. Let's go to NBA Power 15, Pete. We're on a roll today. We're absolutely smoking this thing. We're going to run out of time here today, I think. All right, so let's go. Boston Celtics, number 1, 48-13, Pete. That's a pretty good cohort of games right there. You're looking at 61 games, and you have 82. 61 out of 82.
3/4 of the way.
3/4 of the way, and you are well into being the number one team without question. And if you look and have looked at our Power 15, there's been different teams that have slipped in and out of the 2 and 3 spot.
Yep.
But the gap between the Celtics and the 2 and 3s are growing. The gap between the Celtics and who's in second and third is growing. So the chance that they're going to get caught now is not strong. Timberwolves, surprise team of the year, 43 and 19. Very, very bad news for them. Karl Anthony Towns, their big man, just got hurt and is going to be out for a little bit of time, maybe considerable amount of time. Follow that one closely, because if he's out for a considerable amount of time, that's going to matter. OKC Thunder, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. We'll say his name every single week on the show if we have to. He's one of the most talented emerging players in the NBA. We like his game here on In the Zone. And let me tell you something else. He's absolutely got the OKC Thunder emerging as an NBA threat in the playoffs and really, really doing great stuff out there. They're playing good basketball. They're 42 and 19. Denver Nuggets, number 4, they're climbing, 42 and 20. They're starting to play good ball. Jokic has really had some great games as of late. He's in NBA MVP consideration. Giannis is in MVP consideration. They have a couple of up there. It's getting a little crowded at the top. I think the Rookie of the Year thing is starting to split a little bit. But I'll tell you right now, if I had a dark horse Rookie of the Year, I'd go with the young man Miller from Charlotte. I would give him a look. Milwaukee Bucks, number 5, 41 and 21. They're hot right now. So the Doc effect is on. It came in, they had a little bit of a slide, but right now they're 8 and 2. They're starting to move and groove, and they're starting to get hot, starting to play really good basketball. They had some injuries. Middleton's had a really, really tough couple of years injury-wise, and he's such an important factor for them because he's their best outside perimeter threat. And Giannis is never going to be an outside perimeter threat. He's Dr. Duncanstein. He's taking it to the rim. He's going to finish. He's going to put it on your head. That's his job. But he needs that other guy out on that wing to keep other people spaced from him. But also, when they do crowd him, somebody's got to make that shot. Middleton is the guy proven over years to make that shot. If he stay healthy, I think the Bucks are good. Dame Lillard, Middleton, and the big guy G, the big G inside, I think is a nice 1-2-3 punch. Cleveland Cavaliers, again, the Thunder, the Cavs are the 1 and 2 surprise teams. You've got to throw the Timberwolves in there as well, too. But nobody thought the Cavaliers or the Thunder were going to be as high as they are. They're playing good basketball. They've got 40 wins right now. Nobody, I don't think, would have, in Vegas, I would like to know what their win total was to start the year for Vegas. I'd like to know. I'd say it was probably under 40. Los Angeles Clippers, 39 and 21. They have a lineup that can be potent. They have a really good lineup that you would not want to see if healthy in the playoffs. I can assure you that. New Orleans Pelicans, they switched the big Z to the point, and things are working out beautifully. He's a decision maker. He's a mega talent, and you got to let him have the ball in his hands because that's just what he does. Okay, so the Pelicans are 37 and 25, doing really well. The Magic in the 9-hole. They're a very talented, young, mercurial team. They've been up and down a little bit this year in our Power 15. They've stayed in it the entire time, I want to say, but they've probably been up and down the pole as much as anybody. They've been up at the top, kind of slid to the middle, and then been all the way down at the bottom as well. But they're hanging tough in the 9 spot right now. The 10 spot, the Phoenix Suns, you've got basically a great three threat out there, as they say, where you can put Devin Booker, you can put Kevin Durant, and if Beal gets healthy and stays out there, he's a very, very talented offensive player. If he can produce anywhere near what he was doing in Washington at the end of this and into the playoffs, then I think Phoenix is going to have a whole nother look. And it's what we talked about on last week's show. In the West, you can be looking up. You can be a team that's looking down and saying, okay, we finished first, second, third, and fourth, and you're looking down, at the Lakers, the Warriors, and the Phoenix Suns, or might be in that lower bracket. You never know. All right, so the Knicks coming in at 11, 36 and 26. Probably no team in the NBA more banged up than them right now. They just dodged a bullet when Jalen Brunson went out of the game. MRI or X-rays came back negative on that, thankfully. But if that would have happened, that would have put Brunson, Randall, and OG Anunoby out for the duration of time, and I don't know that they could handle that. The Miami Heat in the number 12 spot, 35-26, starting to play good ball, and nobody wants to see Eric Spoelstra in a series. That's what we're talking about in the West. You're looking at the same thing. That's how Miami, they kind of laid out in the bushes last year, where they finished, in that 6th spot, and they got a pretty good draw in the first round, and then bang, they knocked them off. In the second round, bang, they knocked them off. So they're poised to do the same thing again this year. The 76ers are another team you wouldn't want to be looking down at, because they have no Joel Embiid for a long time. When they get the big fella back healthy, they're going to be really, really tough. They have added a couple of pieces in the trade market, to try and bolster things, but they got to get Embiid back if they're going to have any shot at all. Everybody knows that. In the 14th spot, the Sacramento Kings. This team has been up and down, up and down. Right now they're down, and they're 34-26, but they're hanging tough, still in the Power 15. If you started the year and you would say Sacramento Kings will be in the 15, but the Lakers won't. Sacramento Kings will be in the 15, but the Golden State Warriors won't. I don't think a lot of people would have been in agreement with that. The Indiana Pacers, they have Tyrese Halliburton back, but if anybody saw him take that fall, I think he's probably not back at 100% right now. He came back to try and get this thing rolling, but he hasn't been able to produce at the same level that he did before the injury. But some of that also could be attributable to the fact that they picked up an offensive juggernaut in Pascal Siakam. So he might not be as needed, right there. But again, Pete, we go to chemistry. We talk about that, I think, every week on this show. Yep. It's not that easy just to mix the bottle. It's not a salad. You just can't put on the oil and vinegar and it's going to mix together. You got to make sure that these things sometimes take time and they take it just looks different when you bring guys in the middle of the year, I think. If I was an NBA franchise, and as much as I could, I would try and bring the players up from our own system, in the G League or the places that we have the ability on two-way contracts to put players. I'd try and do it that way. Bring in a guy in, who you're trying to be an impact guy because somebody else got hurt. It's tough. It's tough. All right, we're going to quickly go into our who's hot and who's not section. Right now, as we spoke about previous, the Bucks are real hot. Milwaukee Bucks have won 6 games in a row. They're 8-2 in their last 10. The Magic are 4 in a row, but as we said, they've kind of been up and down. They go 4 in a row. They might lose a couple in a row, but they've been up and down a little bit. And the Miami Heat are won 2 in a row, but each one of those 3 teams is 8-2 in their last 10. That's pretty good. If you can stay 8-2 in your last 10, you're playing 80% basketball. If you can keep that up, 7-3, 8-2, going into the playoffs, you're going to be playing pretty good basketball. But who's not hot? And this is kind of a recurring theme here. The Washington Wizards, L15. They have lost 15 games straight, and they're not really having signs that that's going to break anytime soon. I looked at their schedule a little bit the other day. That could go on for a while. Dallas has lost 3 in a row. Luka, Kyrie, playing well together. They just have some other injuries out there of their players that are supposed to be their role players, the people that are in their support. They have some injuries there, and so if they get healthy for the playoffs, I think that's a dangerous team to be looking down at as well. The Pistons have lost 3 in a row. They're 1-9 in their last 10, and it's been a really, really dismal season out there for the Pistons fans. It's difficult, but it also is. That's the embodiment of what happens when you don't have basketball people around your decision-making process.
Yep.
There is no greater example in the game of basketball than the Detroit Pistons of that. And when you're spending all of these millions of dollars, I don't understand why you would take junior varsity advice when you need the varsity advice. Just keep tuning into In the Zone, and we'll get you through. All right? Now let's go to our NCAA Super 25. Pete has been working hard on our graphics, and I like this. I like this graphic. It gives me a really, really good look on the screen, and I got a good look down here. I have some other stuff written next to the stuff that we don't include in there, so I keep that in front of me as well. But we didn't have any change this week in the top 25, 1, 2, 3. They all had victories. They all maintained their spot, and so I couldn't come up with a rationale for changing it. And so we left Houston number 1, 26-3. Kelvin Sampson, the best defensive coach in the country. I'd love to go work for a guy like that because him and I are totally copacetic on the defensive end. He has his team doing stuff that just I laugh when I watch him because I can see it and I know what he's doing. And I know how hard it is to do that. I know how hard it is to get the teams to buy into that, But he's got guys like Jamal Sheed and guys on that team that are just totally bought in. It's so much fun to watch if you enjoy basketball on that level like I do, the defensive level. I love to watch that. So his team's exciting to me. Final Four. If they don't get lumped up, that's a Final Four team because they're really, really difficult to score on. Connecticut, 26-3. Danny Hurley lost a piece, found a piece. Danny Hurley lost a piece, found a piece. Danny Hurley lost a piece and a piece and a piece. Don't worry, we found some other ones. And we have some guys in the program as well because, as we mentioned back on the show, sometimes you got to go through some of the different shows that we've had in order to thread. How did this UConn thing all come together? And one of the things we mentioned last year when this whole thing was coming out, and we were doing a lot of talking about the portal last year. We were doing a lot of talking about the NIL.
Whether it was good or bad.
Yeah, and we're not big fans of it. I think we were pretty honest about our opinion and what we think about it. And I think a lot of people are in our camp, Pete.
Yep.
I think a lot of people think it's recent, it's a Wild West show. And the NIL came out of court cases. The first one to fall was in California, of course, right? Gavin Newsom, the governor, it was almost by design. This stuff isn't fake. This stuff isn't fake. It's by design,
right,
where this stuff goes and comes, okay? But you got Connecticut doing all of this great stuff, 26-3, and they're just doing really, really good things. Their program's in the right place. Could be another Final Four run, but the NCAA tournament's volatile. It's volatile. They'll have a target on their back for sure.
Yep.
They'll have a target on their back for sure. The big Zach Edey team-led Purdue Boilermakers, okay? They are 27-3. And basically, I think you could really, in a coaching business, you can really use things to your advantage, right? And so they got court-stormed like 3 times this year. They have 3 losses. Matt Painter said, none of our freshmen have ever been in a loss that hasn't been a court storm. But the piece I was losing, I lost my mind there when I was talking about UConn, but the piece I was talking about UConn was also they didn't have anybody in the portal. UConn. They were one of the few Division I teams who didn't have anybody in the portal. That's respect for your program.
Yep.
That's respect for the integrity of your program, and that might be a little bit indicative of where they are right now today. I'm sorry, I regressed there for a second. Back to Purdue, 27-3. The Big Ten well represented there. Illinois is representing the Big Ten as well too. That's going to be a heck of a tournament. Arizona, again, here's where the fall off goes. We go from 3 all the way down to 6 losses. Arizona's losses aren't the kind that we like to see on a top 4, top 5 team, but it's just the rest of the pool has really, really been taken down, because they have the same losses. And so we have to just call it as we see it on this one. It's one of those pools where we're not going to, go into the deep end of the pool and say, all right, we're just going to fish these guys out and say, it'll work. You can't do it because then it looks at the end of the day and you don't have legitimacy. Okay, you want to maintain legitimacy if you can. All right, so Arizona 4. I think you could have put a bunch of teams in that spot, and we'll talk about that. North Carolina and Duke, I put them together again. The big classic is coming up. I love that game, and we'll be ready for it. North Carolina 24-6, Duke 24-6. Duke just landed another huge recruit, probably the number 3 player in the country, and he's a big, big man that can play the inside and really, really run the whole inside. So if Filipowski goes, they will not lose a step. And right now, Duke's recruiting and where they are right now as a program, they're about ready to go to hyperspace as a program, if you ask me. 24-6, the ACC well represented there. Tennessee, 23-6. We like this team. We watched this team the other night in South Carolina. They came up with a pretty good victory, and they're playing well. So much is dependent for the Tennessee Volunteers on their shooting, on their perimeter shooting. They're athletic, they defend well, they rebound well. They have all of the really good pieces out there, but their perimeter shooting is going to be the thing that'll either do them or that will propel them. If they can shoot the ball well in a tournament, they're really going to be tough to deal with. The kid Dalton Neck, would probably be considered as a Player of the Year candidate if Zach Edey wasn't blowing it away like he is. The young man who's playing for Tennessee right now. He's a terrific player. Okay, Iowa State, I like this team. I like them all year, and they didn't disappoint me. TJ Otzenberger is one of the hot coaches. You're going to hear his name bounce around a little bit here, but he's got a pretty good job where he is, and he's got the Cyclones blowing the roof off of people's houses. 23-6, and the Big 12 is well represented here. Okay, we got South Carolina. I have to laugh because there's 35 points between us and KenPom here.
Wow.
There's 35 points, 30-plus points between us and KenPom here. What's the knock on this team, the South Carolina Gamecocks, that you don't have on every single other one of these teams? Strength of schedule. The cannolis that they devoured in the beginning of the season. Obviously, everybody did it, though. You seem to be holding them to a different standard. 24-5 in the SEC. 24-5 in the SEC. Do they have a victory over Tennessee, who's our number 17? Yeah, they do. They do. They have some other good victories as well, too. So, South Carolina, that's why you got to listen to this show, folks, because they don't even have South Carolina represented. They have them in the 44 spot, and that's ridiculous. That's not fair.
Maybe it's just no love for the SEC.
Maybe, but I think that's their job. I think they're the SEC shills.
Yeah.
They're supposed to be there, but by leaving them on the 44 line, it still incorporates them into the 68, Pete.
Yeah. Okay.
Right? So you can give them a bit of a punch in the nose without knocking them out of the box completely. What that will affect is their seed, where they get seeded, and then who their first round opponents are going to be. So if you're seeded in the 1 through, if you have 16 seeds, if you're seeded 1 through 7, you're going to play a lower seed. If you're seeded 1 through 8, you're going to play a lower seed. Right? And so you don't want to wind up as the lower seed because then by nature of that, you're going to play a higher seed.
Yep.
So, but I don't know what the knock is on South Carolina. I like this team. I think they've done really well. And if you can survive in the SEC and be 24-5, you're worthy of our note. I'll tell you that. South Carolina is, right above Auburn. Tell me the difference here. Auburn's 23-7. We have them, same conference, same type schedule. And we have them 10. I like Auburn. I think Bruce Pearl's an exciting coach, exciting program. They could go off at any moment and be really, really good, or they can blow up at any moment and be really, really bad. That's the exciting part about kind of watching Auburn. But they're in the 10th spot, and they're 23-7. So tell me how South Carolina wouldn't be right around that or above that.
Right.
I don't understand it. Okay, let's keep rolling, Pete. Gonzaga. Mark Few, I tell you, this guy's a veteran. We bounced him out of our top 25. I think he heard about it. I think they got the word. In the Zone has bounced you out of the top 25. And I think the AP coaches poll and some of the other people bounced him out for a little bit as well.
Yep.
But Mark Few said there's few and far between when Gonzaga will not be represented in the top 25, will not be represented in the NCAA tournament. And this ain't one of those years. They got them in the 11th spot. They're 24-6 out of the WCC. Stayed up late the other night against St. Mary's, and I like St. Mary's a lot. They went in and gave St. Mary's a good knock in the chin. So we keep on rolling here. Marquette, out of the Big East, 12. They're in the 12th spot, Marquette. This team is a little bit enigmatic, and what there is happening right now is they have an injury to, I think, maybe the best point guard in the entire country. Tyler Kolek has been injured. He's been sitting out. They say they're going to keep him out for the remainder of the regular season and then hopefully be able to get him ready for the Big East. But they're being a little bit quiet about what's going on with him right now. And so I think they're being a little close to the vest. I don't think they want it out. If it is bad, I think they're trying to keep it. When sometimes people in those situations also, when you get into a situation like that, you just start to lie to yourself and you just say it ain't that bad. We'll get it. The trainers will be able to get them ready. So keep an eye on that one. Tyler Kolek goes. Marquette's a really good team. Tyler Kolek doesn't go. Marquette can go right away in that NCAA tournament. They could get knocked off very quickly, and I think they'll struggle mightily in the Big East tournament without him as well. Baylor in the 13th spot. This is the second best defensive team in the country, I think. Everybody had talked about Virginia for years. Right now, Houston and Baylor are the number 1 and 2 defensive teams in the country. Coach Drew has it dialed in. They're athletic. They're quick. They get to the ball. They play pick and roll defense, which is 40% of your defensive shifts right now is on pick and roll phenomenal defense. I think they're doing a great job there, and I really like their program. I think they could give a lot of surprise in the NCAA tournament. They're one of those teams who goes through the league season, and then you sit there and go, yeah, they finished fifth, but my God, look at who they played, and look at how they're ready, and they're pointed in the right direction at the right time. Look at that before you fill out your bracket. And then also look at efficiencies. Because if you're looking at a Final Four, it's very difficult to make the Final Four if you're not top, 50 in both offensive and defensive efficiency. So you got to look at those as well. You'll have some teams that are really efficient on the offensive end. Their defensive efficiencies are terrible. Those teams generally don't win and advance in the tournament. Teams that usually advance in the tournament have high efficiency level numbers on either side. If you want to know a team that has pretty high efficiency numbers on either side, think about Houston, think about Tennessee. All right, let's keep moving here. We got Illinois in the 14th spot. It was a shame what happened to this team in the middle of the season when Shannon went out. I think the thing they took with the alleged assault, and I think this is maybe it could be a formula for how this is handled in the future, about whether playing time should be part of this whole situation at all. When these young men are this is what they try and do for a living. Because I would wonder if you had somebody else in a situation in the private sector, I'm assuming some places might want to terminate the individual, but I think most places would wait until due process has been found before they would make any determination to give both people the benefit of the doubt that are involved in this situation. And so I think that's been lost a little bit, and that kind of knocked Illinois a little bit when their best player was out, and then now back, a little bit of a hiccup, but they're good. And if Terrence Shannon's around in the NBA draft this season, we're going to put him in our top 10, top 15. If something was to change as a result of that alleged misconduct, then we might, have to look at it a different way. But right now, we have a level of innocent until proven guilty in this country. And I think I'll operate on that standard. I go with Creighton in 15, 22-8. This team, again, I'm going to give you a couple of teams right now. If they shoot the ball well, it's going to be a nightmare for whoever they're playing. Creighton is one of them. If they're big guys, shoot the ball well from the outside, and Trey Alexander can do his bit with moving and grooving in the mid-range, and he's a decent shooter as well. But if their shooters get going, watch out. If Utah gets hot here late in the season, watch out. BYU gets hot late in the season, watch out, because those teams are very proficient on the offensive side. Probably got to do a little bit better on the defensive proficiencies there as well. But again, it's going to come down to who gets hot, who makes shots at the end of the tournament. Kansas in the 16th spot. I really wanted to put them lower, to be honest with you, but they're right around. I just tried to judge them on their record, but I see this team having a lot. We said this before about Duke. We said it about Kansas, and we'll say it also about Kentucky right now. There's just something about them that makes me go, Just something about them that makes me look and say, I'm not sure about that. And this team, has given me lots of reasons to go home. They've gotten knocked off at home. They've gotten knocked off in places that they normally haven't gotten knocked off in. And they're finding life in the Big 12 with all of these added teams into the super conference that they've become has really become, a very, very rigorous toll on just about everybody in the league. And I think Kansas is a team, because I have great respect for Coach Self, Norm Roberts, Freddie Kortelbaum. Their entire staff out there is just first class. It's an A group, no question about it. And if anybody can get this group together and make them on a run, I think that they're the group. But a lot of it will come down to McCullough as well, who's had some injury. And if he gets back healthy, I think they're ready and primed to go. If he's going to, have some injury and have some problems, I think they're going to have some difficulty, because to me, the big guy Dickinson hasn't really been everything that they thought he was going to be. The $2 million man hasn't really have a return on investment that I think they thought was going to be. We got San Diego over here now in the 18th spot. San Diego State, 22-8, doing a really good job this year, but they've just gotten hit too. Everybody's getting hit. Everybody's getting knocked up. One of the reasons is that these teams are not traveling as well as some used to. If you look at how this thing's going, teams are getting absolutely blown out on the road now. Some of these teams are absolutely just throwing up their arms and saying, we don't even want to be here tonight, and just getting blown out on the road. You don't see that In the back in the day, these races were much more hotly contested with teams that really had an appearance that they really wanted it. Some of these teams just kind of go through the motions at times, and I think that's what some of the coaches are talking about with NIL and portal, and they go through the motions a little bit, and they don't play as hard as the guys used to. And there's all these, it's why these older coaches are getting out of the game. That's why you see, Mike Krzyzewski, not Dean Smith, but Roy Williams, and Jim Boeheim. And granted, they were older gentlemen and had much long storied careers, much behind them, but still, you have to shake your head and say what part of that is, having to, Lou Saban came out and said it point blank. After the Alabama season ended, all they wanted to talk about was how much playing time I'm going to get or how much money I'm going to get. And it drove him away from the game. And if you're driving away your best coaches by this, you really have to look at what you're doing here because you're really impacting the game. That's going to impact the game. I know I read on these chat boards all the time that, it doesn't matter who coaches the team. Coaching's really easy. Don't know why these guys get paid so much money.
Not at the college level.
Well, I'll give you a quick understanding. All right, we have Mark Schmidt at St. Bonaventure. He's taken our program to incredible heights and levels. Okay, it matters because there were times all of our St. Bonaventure faithful, and I know they're upset about the loss last night, and everybody gets on that chat board and starts hammering away. But I think that might be a little amnesia kicking in there because forget about where we might have been at different times and points in our program and our career. And so, you got to ride out a loss here and there every once in a while, but that doesn't make him not a great coach. It makes the product that he's working with a little tougher to deal with, for sure. They're having NIL arrangements. They're in the mid majors. These guys are getting paid. They're just not getting paid as much money as everybody else is. All right. So we have St. Mary's, number 19, out of the WCC, 24-7. Bounced them down a little bit because I thought if you're going to handle your business, beat Gonzaga. I would have moved you up if you had beaten Gonzaga, but I don't want to crush them with the Gonzaga loss, but we bounced them down a little bit. We got BYU in the 20 spot. This is a team they're hanging tough in the Big 12. Life in the Big 12 hasn't been good for them. They're 20-8 right now. They're going to get into the NCAA tournament. They can be deadly at times, but also they've fallen like a rock since they've joined, since mid-January and February have come. They were one of the teams that were undefeated. I want to say they were 12-0. 12-0. And so now you're 20-8. And so you're 8-8, in your last 16. And I think that's what matters. And so when you look at that, and as you say, statistical and all that other stuff, you gotta look at some of these mid-major conferences that are playing it straight. So New Mexico, Richard Pitino, I like this team. They've gotten nicked up a little bit here, but 21-8 in the Mountain West, I think, is a very good conference. You're going to see them well represented in the NCAA. Florida Atlantic hanging on, 22-7. They're getting nicked up, but everybody's getting nicked up. So why hold them more accountable than anybody else? I like these last two picks that we made. 24, Utah State. They're 24-5, and they're out in the Mountain West. This team, don't wind up playing them in the NCAA. You can knock them if you want, but it's like Princeton. It's like some of these other teams. They're highly skilled, and they will space the floor on you, and they will gun that three ball down you all night long, and it's going to make it for a tough night, so I'd be careful there. Indiana State, they have a young man who's about 7 foot out there, and his nickname is Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. And it's just Robbie Avila. And I'll tell you what, this kid can play, though. The nickname is it's funny, but don't sleep on this kid. Indiana State, he ain't Larry Bird, but he's pretty good. And I would look at that team if they're going to be in your bracket. I'd give them a really, really strong look. All right, we're ready to close, Pete. We're at 105, so I'm just going to give you this last bit of group here, and then we're going to close. All right, what we have here is in our Super 25, we took it out and we broke it down by conference for you. Okay, so if the team is in this top 25, they're basically going to the NCAA tournament. All right, Big 12 are going to get 5 out of here. Big East got 3. Big 10 got 2. Pac-12, 2. ACC, 2. SEC got 4. WCC got 2. MWC, the Mountain West, got 3. American got 1, and the Missouri Val got 1 for our 25. Everybody, have a great week. We'll see you next week. It's going to be jumping in the zone.